Welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. I'm Rich Pritchard, and this is Kyle Golding. Today we're going to talk about strategy, but in a little different way than maybe you've heard it before.
Welcome to the Golding Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of best practices, latest trends, and modern techniques for professional business communication, including advertising, marketing, digital channels, social media, public relations, and alternative options.
Kyle, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Super excited that you brought up the S word, strategy. One of my favorite things to talk about. I'm super happy to have this conversation.
The better part of my teaching career, 20 plus years, I have struggled to try and explain to students what strategy is.
Well, I struggle to explain strategy to business professionals too on a regular basis. Yeah. Really smart people who are still trying to figure out the most succinct way to get them to understand the value and the impact of strategy.
Right, exactly. From a military standpoint, I could talk about strategy all day, but very few of my students have served in the military, so that hasn't worked in the past, right?
Okay.
Well, I ran across a young man. He's an engineer by training, pretty brilliant dude, couple PhDs,
wow.
But a young man by the name of Andrew Bellay. Bellay. We'll put some stuff in the notes section.
We'll put the links up, yeah.
He has turned to strategy as his life's work now.
Okay, it's his mission.
Yeah, it's his mission.
Very good.
And the website that he runs is STRATY.
Okay.
Straty, right? And he went through, there's a great video, it's only about 8 minutes on his site about what is strategy. And he kind of worked his way all the way through from starting with the definition. What in the definition of strategy can we take away to understand it?
Sure.
That didn't work. Right?
Still complicated.
No clues, because it's almost like defining the word with the word, right?
Right.
So then he looked at the etymology, and in particular the Latin, and that was somewhat instructive, but still no va bene, as the Italians would say.
I love it now. Now I get a chance to use the word nomenclature. This is where we are now. I love that. Love it.
So through a series of other revelations, self-revelations and whatnot, he has defined it the way I wish I had been able to define it for my students for 20 years.
All right, so we found the answer.
I'm going to share it.
Excellent.
I don't know if it's the answer, but I think that as you listen through this, as we talk through this, perhaps you'll see the efficacy of his effort.
Okay.
And so full credit goes to Andrew for sure. So he said, and he also looked at a whole bunch of other folks. There's Michael Porter, who's probably one of the gurus or czars of strategy, and he parsed out some things from him. His definition of strategy is the process of creating a set of well-aligned activities with the aim of occupying a valuable position within a competitive landscape.
I hear some terms there I like.
Yeah.
I like the process. I like where it starts and where. I'm okay with that.
Well, process, first part, creating a set of well-aligned
yes.
activities.
Activities is essential. It doesn't matter how good it is on paper until you execute.
Well, and the key part of that is well-aligned.
Yes, for sure.
Right? To occupy a valuable position.
I love the word position. Use it on a regular basis. When it comes to business, it's all about position.
In the competitive landscape.
There it is. Position in a competitive landscape is probably, honestly, that's the meat of it right there. That's the home run. That's the if you understand anything from that statement, that's the thing that you need to understand first and foremost so that you understand the value moving forward from it.
Absolutely, on the business side. But I would also argue it's that well-aligned activities
yes.
and the process.
It's because people typically start with thousands of
Tactics.
Unaligned activities that they want to randomly throw against the wall, right? But it's the well-aligned that allows you to be effective.
Right, exactly. Because if you're not well aligned, one of the misaligned pieces could completely blow the whole ball game.
Well, it's also the difference between strategy, which we're discussing here, and just simple activity.
Right, exactly. So
that's being busy and being effective are two different things.
right. Just because you show up all the time and stay late doesn't mean that you're being
You can
effective.
work hard, but if you're not working smart, it doesn't matter.
I have a colleague who's always busting my chops because of when I come in and leave. And one of these days, I'm going to pop off and say, just being here doesn't make you effective.
That's right.
Anyway, so that's strategy. Now, a strategy is a set of well-aligned activities with the aim of occupying a valuable position so strategy is the process. A strategy is a well-aligned activity.
It is the thing.
It's the thing. And the tactic then is an activity that, when combined with other well-aligned activities, helps you achieve that. And
it's the combination that's
position.
key right there.
Right.
A singular tactic has no real value. It's the combination. And then I'll go a step further because for me, you always talk about consistency. It's the consistency of delivery. So it's combination and consistency.
Yep. And there's some other interesting topics in there. As I said, he's an engineer, so he's coming at this from an engineering perspective.
Right.
And there's some architectural perspectives that he puts in there as well. But I think this works really well for communication as well.
I like it.
Because it's all kind of nested in this well-aligned activity space.
Yes. And I'm gonna go dig in the middle of this and go a little inside baseball, but that's we're talking to professionals, communication professionals here, right? Business people. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but I want to reiterate because you use the term tactics.
Right.
So let's reiterate where you start.
You start with
goals.
Strategy.
You start with goals.
Right.
You set your goals. From goals, you get subsets called
objectives.
Of the objectives, how do you execute on the objectives?
Well, it's strategy.
Strategy is delivered via tactics.
Yes.
So when you hear the word tactics, remember you only got there because you set an overall strategy what you're trying to achieve overall. You set goals based on that strategy. Those goals are broken into objectives. Those objectives now, because we're aligning like items.
Right.
That's the second half of strategy is aligning our like activities.
Right.
And that execution is the tactics stage. Never start at tactics.
Everybody wants to. That's kind of the fun
tactics.
stuff.
That's right.
But
you have to end there. You have to start at the top. You got to work your way down. Tactics is the bottom. It's it's feet on the ground, right? It's rubber meets the road.
It's the step by step. This is what we have to do to achieve our strategy.
And now as we go forward in the future, we'll continue to talk about our aligned activities.
Yes, well-aligned activities.
So when we talk about tactics, we will always be referring to our well-aligned activities because I really do like that part of the definition. I really do feel like that is an essential aspect of what works. You can do stuff. You can create a plan and a process in one of those like on paper type scenarios, maybe something you would turn in for a class or for a pitch competition. But at the end of the day, in the real world, if you want to make a business that actually works, a business plan that actually works, a marketing plan that actually does what it's supposed to do, of course, it has to adapt and adjust. And the well-aligned aspect, the focus on doing well-aligned first, is your 80% your 80-20, right? You do the well-aligned, the 80% is your well-aligned, you're well-developed, you're like-minded. It's also the collaboration of the same effort. Like you put work into creating these tactics. A lot of the same work goes into the same tactics. It's just delivered in different channels. Yeah. So they're well-aligned. They're going to be effective. That's your 80% that you're doing on the primary. Your 20% is experimentation. That's where you get into the less aligned because it is experimentation. But once it starts to work, if you're 20% experiment, if one of those things works or two of those things start to really get traction, you have to figure out how to bring that back into the 80% well-aligned.
Right.
You have to figure out what you put it with.
Right. Exactly.
If you can do that, then your marketing plan, your business plan will adapt on the fly and you can continue to work because the real world gives you feedback you never expect, right?
Yep.
If you can't think of it as how to look at things well aligned and what goes together to create efficiencies, then you sort of work yourself into a circle of effort, not effectiveness.
Right, exactly. So it starts with knowing where you're going. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the ambition to be achieved, as one of my students defined it years ago. And the objectives are the measurement piece, the time frame, what you're trying to do in terms of awareness, acceptance, and action. And the strategy then is that set of well-aligned activities that is going to get you to achieving your goal. The tactics then are activities when combined with other well-aligned activities.
There you go.
Helps you to achieve your goal.
Now I'm going to drive one more point home because it's a big thing for me, and it's not a pet peeve. It's a point of emphasis. So go back to that initial definition of strategy. We talked about position within an industry.
Right.
So key, folks. When you're creating a business plan, people want to skip position. And it's the most critical part of your business plan is defining your position in an industry.
Right.
The easiest, quickest way for a business to fail is try to be everything to everyone. You've all heard this before, right? We're going to emphasize, I'm going to say it one more time because damn it, it's important. You cannot be everything to everyone.
Right.
You also can't be good, great, even acceptable at everything.
Right.
There are things you're going to have strengths and there are things that are going to be weaknesses. That's human beings. That's organizations. This is what it is. It's not a failure on your part. It just is what it is. The focus on emphasizing your strengths, maximizing them, to de-emphasize or mitigate your weaknesses, and find a position where your strengths versus your competitors, your competitive landscapes, their strengths, their weaknesses, finding that position within, and sometimes people call it niche or whatever it is, but it's position. Finding the place where you can compete the most effectively, the most efficiency effectively. Sometimes it's not the sexiest place to be.
Right.
Everyone wants to be the top brand, the flashiest, the most beautiful. And that's fine and good if that's your natural position and where you really should be. But when you try to force position, it's a recipe for failure. Right. Pay attention to what you're doing, your strengths and weaknesses, your competitive landscape, the industry, and find that position. When you find a place, a sliver, a niche, whatever it is, and sometimes it's the Grand Canyon, and sometimes it's 1 millimeter wide. Right. When you get in that spot and you compete at your highest level with the most possibility to attract the exact right on it. Not everyone. That's another failure too, right? Everyone's not your client,
right?
But attract the exact right client who gets what you're doing, gets your value prop, likes the way you're delivering it, the way you do business. It exactly meets their expectations. The likelihood of creating a sale to get a conversion and then get a repeat conversion, which of course is even more effective than the first one, and then referrals, brand evangelism, that whole path from the first time I meet you to telling everyone I know you should be doing business with you. That happens when you're super specifically positioned.
Yep.
I'm just going to go in there and compete with everyone. Good luck, sucker, because you're going to get knocked around, especially if you're entering a market that's already established with established players, right? They know who they are. They know what they're bringing, and they've got brand awareness and all the other stuff. So if you have a startup or you have a business that needs to grow and do better, the more positioned, the more specific you are positioned, which means more work in your strategy and using these definitions and really doing this work, the more likely you are to create the initial success that is then repeatable, dependable, and predictable.
And scalable.
Right. If you can get in that space, if you can get where business is repeatable, you can predict it, you can plan on it, you can bank on it. And trust me, even to the point of predictability on paper where the bank would loan you money against it. Think about that deep down, right? If you can get to that level, the likelihood of success and continued growth, sustainability for your business is through the roof. Wandering around in the competitive landscape with trying to figure out what sticks because we're everything to everyone is a recipe for failure. So I really wanted to emphasize the fact that part of his definition of strategy included the position within your industry because it is critical and the place where I feel most people fail.
Right. He does a great job in the other section talking about business strategy with a couple case studies, and one of them is Southwest. Southwest doesn't go for the big dollar international. They established themselves as a low-cost airline, no frills, and profit. They wanted to be profitable, of course. And so he does a real good job of kind of deconstructing their strategy and helping you understand where this whole concept does come in, and it's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's
that makes a lot of sense,
Being
yeah.
in the right position. So
For sure. And finding that opportunity. Southwest a lot of times goes into markets that just no one else wants in.
Right.
And that's the opportunity that they created for themselves,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to go right heads up and go the top 25 markets
Right.
and compete with the big established players.
Right.
Now they're established. They could probably change that if they wanted to, but they stick with it because it works.
they do. They just added flights to Nashville and I forget where else, but they're doing so incremental. Oh, and to New York, they're doing so incrementally though.
Right.
And they started out, it was Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio.
Well, and 2 years ago, thank goodness for us, they added that Washington, D.C. flight, which we took
Right.
so many times in 2019. COVID took that away from us right now. But I hope as we go back to the post-COVID landscape that we get that flight to D.C. back, because that direct flight from Oklahoma City to D.C. multiple, because we were taking, there were 2 or 3 times a day we could get out there.
Right.
There's obviously a lot of, everyone around the country is doing business in D.C., so a direct flight on Southwest was beneficial, but
Right.
they had to take them away strategically, and they'll add them back strategically.
Right, exactly. So there you go. I'm pretty happy that
Yeah, I like that.
I found Andrew's effort to describe strategy. I think I'm going to stick with it, and we'll put some information on his website in the notes.
Yeah, there'll be links below for sure, like they always are. And like we always do, we're going to ask you guys, give us feedback. Let us know what you like, you dislike, if you agree, disagree, think there's something missing.
Hit that subscribe button.
All right, if it's Andrew yourself, please chime in. We would love to hear from you.
We
You're a
would.
smart dude. We like what you're
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
Hit the
Exactly.
subscribe button and leave us feedback, leave us a rating, do all those great things that you do for your favorite podcast.
There we go. So until next time, ciao.
Good luck.
This has been the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. Thanks for listening.